Hi everyone, this is Joel Harrison. If you like what you're learning here, then please subscribe to my platform. Thanks for watching. I'm here with Redd Volkaert, one of my favorite guitar players. You're one of the only players that I know of in today's landscape that really deeply studied the Bob Wills stuff and the history of country music, so that in any given moment, the two are intertwining in your playing, and you'll hear a jazz chord in a country tune, or a country lick in a jazz tune. Can you show us a little bit of that, and then let's talk about it. And you were talking to me about some of the people that you learn from, and I'm sure people would enjoy knowing who some of those people are too. Like the tune we played last night, Home in San Antone. You're playing chords to that. What's it going to sound like?
Well, I mean, normally I think the song is a 3 or a 4 chord song.
Right.
So Eldon Shamblin, who was with Bob Wills, who was kind of a, people say today, a Freddie Green style of player, but in a country band. Mm-hmm. So he put a bunch of that stuff in there and changed the whole program, I think, by doing that. So on a tune like this that's got 1 to a 4, 1 to a 5, he would go, haven't gotta worry, haven't gotta care, haven't got a thing to call my own. When I'm out of money, I'm a millionaire, but I still got my home in San Antone. So he put all these things in there, and not knowing where that came from or anything about it, as a young guppy, I thought, well, I know some of those chords, like, I still got my home in San Antone. Kind of, they call those cupcake changes from the 50s. So there's one little piece, I think, well, I don't think he was playing that stuff long before that stuff come, before Pat Boone came around. So, but those are those kind of changes in there. And then yet, while the song's staying on the 1 chord, haven't gotta worry, haven't gotta care, haven't got a thing to call my own. So just on that piece, he made the bass line seem like it's thematic. It's either going north or south, one way or the other, going. Now it goes to the G chord. He would use the 3 of the G chord for the bass, then augmented, E minor, then sharp diminished.
Yeah.
So there's all the jazz guy stuff. Now, of course, I don't know any of that, or never did, and I'm still working on trying to remember what I can of it. But basically, he's doing, it seems to me that style of playing is more about the bass line doing something, and then they put these chords underneath. And the chords can vary like they would in a jazz tune. You don't have to play a 2 minor 7. Right. It can be a 2 minor, or, if it's some song is a 1 with a 1/7 that goes to a 4, the jazz guy would go, oh, that's too corny. I have to play a 5 minor instead of a C7.
Yeah.
So instead of going, they would go then to the F.
Right. Now, from what you're saying, Eldon Shamblin was responsible for
I think in the Western swing world.
No kidding. So it wasn't, he was the guy in the band that said, can we do this instead of just playing those 3 chords?
I don't know if he was. I really don't know. I'm assuming, back when Bob put these bands together, it was at a certain time in an era that all the big bands, the 20-piece orchestras, were gone because of the Depression.
Right.
So now all of a sudden there's all these jazz guys out of work. Bob goes, hey, I'm going to put me together a 9-piece country band and have, a big, small orchestra to play. So, hey, any guys here play country? And they all go, I'm out of work, I only got to feed my family. Yeah, we play country. So they all joined his band, as many as could, which were guys like Eldon and Tiny Moore and those kind of jazzy guys.
Yeah.
So they get in the band and they're playing, Faded Love. They're playing do 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 do. So I think they snuck that stuff in there out of boredom and went, we got to do that. We can't leave it alone like this 3-chord hillbilly thing. So, and I'm sure Bob went, well, that's cool. Let's do that. Let's keep that. Probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess because there's so many jazz guys in those kind of Hank Penny, Spade Cooley, Billy Jack Wills, and Bob Wills, and several others. But those were all kind of 9 to 11, 12 piece kind of Western swing, what became what we know as Western swing bands. And I think the leaders were all fiddle player, country guys that played those kind of. So they hire these other guys, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Let's just instead of that, let's go."
Got it.
And they put all that stuff in there for fun and keep sane and for them. And I think it stuck, and that's kind of how this came to be. I'm assuming, I don't know. Wasn't there, but it seems like that kind of a pattern.
Yeah.
So Eldon being a jazzy guy and all of that, I think he already knew all that stuff because he just stuck it in there, and man, did it ever work.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to that. So what I, as a young fella, thought, okay, I don't know what those chords are because I don't know any music or nothing. I'm just a country guitar player that is wanting to learn this new stuff to me at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, what are they doing? I'm hearing. I'm hearing that. Now, somehow he's putting some fancy whatever underneath there.
Right.
I don't know what it is. So I would just kind of go.
Coming from Dixieland in a way too. I mean, this is New Orleans music.
Yeah.
And but this is kind of something not too many people do these days. This is a little bit of a lost art. This
you don't hear it very, very, very little.
But that is beautiful. But let's talk a little bit about the bridge because now, from what you're saying, because the
original bridge, they stay on the 4-chord forever. No, it stays on the 4. On that Home in San Antonio, the bridge is, when I greet my neighbor with a how you all, I'm wealthy as a king upon a throne.
Okay. So what we were doing last night is...
Yeah, I do G augmented, 6th, sharp diminished, then 1, sharp diminished, 2. If you want to go 2, 3, 4 sharp, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh.
Just to add that extra bounce to it that makes it more Western swing.
Yeah. So we were talking about
on the bridge of
Home in
San Antonio. So normally it would be without that stuff. It's da 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 4 back to 1 da 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 da. So I think part of the trick that Eldon would do is that the bass lines always followed a pattern, whether they're going north or south or whatever you want to call it, up and down, ascending, descending. When you get to the G chord, you could go up and go augmented to a 6th. Now I want a G sharp. Then they would play a D chord with an A bass. That way the bass line follows the same sort of pattern. That seemed to be one of his tricks, is that he would do that.
Sure.
So if we did it in a lower register, San Antonio, now goes to the 4th. There's a sweet somebody. Augmented G chord, E minor, I guess technically, or you can call it a 6 in a G, depending on the bass note.
Yeah.
So 6. Now, what would be the 7th note is also the G sharp diminished.
Yeah.
But the reason that it's this shape is because of the bass note going, and then get to the D, got the 3 as the root.
Yeah.
Bass player's got me covered with too many 1s, and so's the piano player, and
Right.
they've got all the root stuff there. So his job, I'm assuming, is to make all these cool little changes in there. But he's also thinking, hey, if I make all my bass lines climb up and come down, it's going to be a certain flavor that I'm striving for.
Yep.
So when he's doing that,
Beautiful.
so those chords are G, 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 G sharp, or G, back to the 1, ba-da-da-da-da-do-da. Now you've got time. It can either stay on A, or it could go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. 1, 6, sharp, 2 minor 5, which is a jazz guy thing to do. But instead of going 2 minor 5, you can go 2 minor, 1, 5 with the 3 bass of its 3. So now we're playing the 5, which is the A chord, but using the 3 of the 1, 2, 3 bass note to make that A chord with a 3 bass, because the bass player has the 1.
Got it.
So his thing was to go so that you were going to hear the bass line. And then he wants to be a jazz guy some more, so he goes, plays a C note over the
D?
over the D chord, which makes it a 7, but it's a 5 minor. Depending on where the bass notes is going to change the name of the chord.
Yeah.
But so in that situation, I would go sharp diminished, 2 minor, 1, 5. Now, if I wanted to, I could play A minor or use a C bass with it, because the bass player has the A.
Right.
So I got a big fat A minor chord with 2 C's in it, and my getting out of that is going. So there, I've got the sharp diminished.
Yep.
Then 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. So those happen like, 1 and 2 and 3, and so the chords are changing to every beat and a half, that way.
Wow.
Over what would normally be a hillbilly version was just be 1, 5, 1.
Right. That is fantastic.
Now 1, 2, 3, 4.
One of the things that you're doing is you're really playing the harmony. You're not just playing country licks.
No, you
over
mix
the-
and
you're
match
playing
the
country.
melody with
So-
the harmony, and being a wannabe, you wish I could play jazz like the real guys, thinking the way of thinking. I think when you hear those chords like a 5 minor, I could play a 5 minor lick as long as I land on a 1, I'll be safe and still somewhat melodic unless I go too crazy. So if we're finishing up, now I go. So I've got a certain sound that's kind of a jazzy way of going. Instead of doing that, I already said it once, so I want to do something different.
Right.
Then I come back and play a corny country melody, so everybody goes, oh, he hasn't lost his mind or his place. He knows the song.
Well, now...
And that, I think, is a big part that a lot of guys don't do, because they get so caught up in, oh, I'm playing fun stuff and it's crazy and it's weird and oh, it's great. And everybody else is going, yeah, but it's not the song.
I got you. So you bring it back home.
I call that job security playing in a way, because if somebody's going to sing after your solo, you don't want to be going, okay, smart ass, try and sing over that. They don't even know there was no one in there. Right. What am I supposed to sing to? Yeah. So you're not being very polite or nice to the next fellow that's going to either play a solo on whatever instrument, or the lead singer who's probably paying you. Remember that? So if that's the case, then always come back home and resolve. All the jazzy and all the funny and cool, cartoony, whatever stuff you can come up with is awesome and great for us guys to go, oh, isn't he clever? Isn't he smart? Yeah. But the singers are like, no, it's a smart ass, That's the difference, because they don't do that. They don't care about it, and they don't really want to hear it, because they're trying to make it sound like a version or a record that they heard that didn't have all those extra things we're sneaking in there. So I think out of respect, a lot of people should, go nuts at your solo, do what you want, but maybe when you start, take from the singer that finished the melody, start with the first line as maybe the melody, then go crazy, take the gloves off, whatever you want to do. But when you're almost done, bring it back home so that everybody else knows, oh, he hasn't lost his place, or he's intentionally trying to stink the next guy's turn up and be a bully kind of, and I don't think people think of it like that, but I think it's a conscious thing that everybody should have when they're playing with other people, as just to be polite and have a bit of an easier camaraderie between two guys, or seven guys, whatever.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about in previous podcasts is ending your solo. It's one thing to start, but ending a solo is key. Get it? It's exactly what you're talking about. Just tying the bow and bringing it to where there's an actual feeling of like, wow, he's done. Beautiful.
Yeah, you're hearing. Well, there's no question where that went.
Yeah.
As corny as it is, it sets it up for the other guy,
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the chord work you're doing, because obviously you've learned a lot from steel players and, just certain voicings that you're doing that in your typical jazz world, if we were playing bebop or something, are a little different. And they sound great. So I think that this tune is, even though you've already played some of that, is a great context for that. Can you emulate, the steel a little and what you were just doing, and just show us a little more of the kind of original chord work that you're bringing to this?
Well, with the steel,
especially up high, some of the the solo chord work you're doing.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're doing the same, that 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sorry, my volume went to.
I got mine way down.
There we go.
Kind of rattling in here. So
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
something like that right there. I'm playing, there's an old song called Little Rock Getaway. And then it's 1, 6, 2, 5. So I hear that and I go, this is the same song, what's the difference?
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of guys go, well, I know that song, but I wouldn't think to put it in there. Hello?
Yeah.
It goes from a D, you know, it's the same as going. Those are all jazz guy, not chords maybe, but jazz guy move where they're not leaving nothing alone. They're picking up every rock.
Yeah.
They're going.
Yeah.
You know, and all I'm doing is da 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 do da boo da do da 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 do da da do da da. That's the same thing, but I'm thinking of it. Well, this stuff works over that. Boo da do da do da do da do da 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 da.
Beautiful.
So there you can. I mean, it's kind of a. You know, etiquette-wise, when I try and teach some guys, I say, etiquette-wise, like having manners when you play. If you're playing with a band that doesn't know those kind of changes and those bunch of fancy chords to put all that stuff in there, if the bass player doesn't know that stuff, don't do that.
Right.
Because it's either going to throw him off because he doesn't know it, or he's going to be mad because he doesn't know it, and you're forcing him to stumble along with those things by implying all the stuff all the time. If you have to imply something, do it just a little bit for one little phrase, and that way you're waving your hand, hey, look at me, everybody, I know something. If that's what you gotta have, then if that strokes you, then good, go. But don't do too much of it because it becomes too much salt in the wound, or in the soup, whatever,
Yeah.
It's too much of a good thing maybe. It might be a good thing to you and me because the guy's overplaying and doing a whole bunch of cool stuff we can't think of or copy or whatever, but the band and the dancers and the crowd and the club owner and the bar and the guy that runs the band, they don't give a shit about that stuff and they don't necessarily want to hear it. So who are you playing for? The two guitar players in the front row that are out of work, or are you trying to keep your job? Well, they're sucking on a Coke, not even a beer, because they're broke.
Right. So,
are you playing for those guys, or are you trying to please the band leader who will maybe give you a raise because you're doing a better job than the last guy that didn't?
Right.
So I think of that kind of when you're playing fancy stuff. If it's that kind of band that's what they're doing is all that jazzy kind of trying to outsmart each other, and here's something I know that's fancier than you got, neener.
Right.
If it's that gig, then that's the place for that.
Yeah.
But if you're in a country band or a blues band, you wouldn't think to put all that stuff in there.
Right.
You could sneak a little bit of it in there as a flavor, like a spice. We're having chicken, but I brought a little bit of cayenne for it.
Right.
It's just, but not a lot, just
Yeah.
a little bit. Otherwise, everybody's going to go, whoa, too much nutmeg. Let's go home.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about string pulls because, one of the beautiful things about Telly and about the way you play and that history is that no matter what you're playing on, you're not going to worry one way or the other about throwing a country lick into a jazz tune, as I said earlier, or vice versa. So show us a little bit of the double stops and the bends that you are most fond of these days.
Okay, well, let's do the same tune and say, another thing I kind of like to say would be that if I'm in a trio situation, I hate my playing, I'm tired of it, I don't want to hear that shit anymore. So while I'm playing, if I think, okay, I got a song and I'm in a trio, you're the singer, bass player, and you say, hey, take another solo, that's great. I don't want to play the same kind of stuff the second time around.
Yeah.
So I think, okay, I always look at it like, what would a steel player do? What would a fiddle player do? What would a jazz guitar player do? What would a country guitar player do?
Yeah.
And so if I get two solos in a row, I could say, okay, I could play one solo like this style and this one like that, or I could do half a solo like a country guitar, then a steel guitar, then a jazz guy, and then maybe the melody to finish up with.
Beautiful.
And looking at tailoring my solos that way, thinking a little bit ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, okay, well, I'm going to start this song and play the same thing as a country guy. So 1, 2, 3. So there's a couple of different things that make it different and sound like maybe another, hopefully like there's another guy walked in and jammed with you.
Yeah.
And it's just you or you and me, we play, you know, different. If we're playing, we're in a band, a bass player and a drummer, you and me, you take a solo. I think it's wrong if you played a steel guitar solo type of thing. I think it's wrong for me to continue that on as, oh, here's my steel licks. Then you kind of sound like you're in a gunfight. Like I've got something better than you, and here's my version.
Right.
I think it sounds better as a listener watching two guys play to go, he just played a steel solo, now he played a bebop solo.
Yeah.
And he played the melody, and then he played all double stops. And, you know, it's like, wow, what a cool variety those two guys are playing, that they both have enough information to play those sort of styles and kind of segregate them, that it's steel stuff, double stop stuff, Western swing or bebop, and if you're doing it, you're the only guitar player, do the same thing with your own playing.
Exactly.
And half a solo of this and half a solo of that if you want to change it up. But if you're playing all night, you might do a whole solo of each style because you got a 3 or a 5 hour gig.
Yep.
And that's going to make it more fun because you're challenging yourself to go, okay, I played these same 3 steel licks that I know real well, and the 2 songs ago, I need some new ones. What else have I got? And it makes you reach and strive and try and find more, even though it's that style, you don't know everything about that style.
Yeah.
None of us do, you know, so there's some more different ways to twist it, you know, play it backwards.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
So, man, I want to talk to you a little bit about playing with Merle Haggard. So, the first thing is, you're sitting in the seat that Roy Nichols occupied. He was one of the great and tastiest guitar players of all time. Talk a little bit about Roy's playing and what it means to you, and then talk a little bit about what you had to do to feel like you were really doing the job with him. Or was it just easy? It's like, I know what to do. He never had to say a thing.
In a way, I mean, I studied all my life to try and sound like that guy, so I learned a whole bunch of his licks and a bunch of the solos from all the records like every other goofy kid did, and learned that stuff, so I knew it. 20 years, 30 years later, I'm still doing those things, and then I'm making up my own as well. Back to the playing different styles of solos, I would say, okay, well, we're playing a Bob Wills tune, and I'm playing it like a steel player. I'm playing it in double stops. I'm playing the melody. Okay, what would Roy Nichols do on that? I think, okay, how many Roy Nichols licks do I got in my head? Oh, I got a few. Let's try that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, sorry, I gotta bring my
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I screwed it up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Way of doing it. That's not, I guarantee it's not what he would have played. We're all different.
Yeah.
But I think of all the things that I know that's in that vein. So I've, you know, worked a lot on that stuff as a kid and played it all my life and always have and always will, hopefully, and try and get it better. And he had a whole bunch of really cool, crazy things that not only country guys didn't do, but because he incorporated them into country kind of a tune.
Yeah.
So you had a melody that was like do da 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 da. He might start. It's like, where does that come from? he must have sat around on the couch one day and went, so if I go, so he's sneaking all these cool little things, but it's still country and real melody oriented, but he's sneaking diminished, augmented, and all kind of jazz guy lingo in there.
Yeah.
But not too much of it, but just enough. And to me, as a kid, I don't know why, but that style and the way that he did that was like, woo, I got to figure what that is. And I love it. I like that sound. I want to mimic it. As a teenager, I was just eat up with that and trying to, so I would sit with the records and move the needle back and forth and, you know. So here he jazzed up by going augmented. Now to the 1, augmented, 4 chord. When he gets to the 5, it's kind of steel lick. Blues. So he's putting everything in there, like
But that,
all styles.
Okay, let's just, that one lick, coming from the note and coming down.
Pre-bending, yeah.
But that is such a great thing to do. People forget about that. I know country players do it, but
Yeah.
it just, I don't think people value all the different ways you can bend.
Oh.
Enough playing every kind of guitar. Let's talk about that for a second. I've always said that I feel that vibrato and bending are truly our secret weapons as guitar players, and I don't care what kind of music you're playing. So talk a little bit about the different ways that you approach that. You know, coming from the bottom, coming from the top, you know, different kinds
Well,
of
I
vibrato.
mean, bending things, being a country guy, I always think of the steel guitar.
Yeah.
They go up. That kind of, I think of steel guitar that way.
Yeah.
And then I think of, you know, like I say, mainly steel guitar for me, because I hear, you know, we're in D, da 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 da, boo da 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 do da. And all that is with a 9 on top of an A chord. But a steel player's got all these shit they're kicking and moving knee levers, so they go a whole tone. So technically, that's an E minor. So whatever the chord is we're playing an A chord, that's a 5 minor. I'm not playing the minor third, but I'm sure implying that that's happening. And then I take it a half step, always going somewhere with it.
So it's
half step, yeah. And a half step's the hard one to get,
It is.
but it's practice, you know. Yeah. Now I've got an A9, but there's no A. It's got a 3 and a 9 or a 2 in it. But if the bass player's got the A, I've got.
right.
And over that A, I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing that E minor. Still, it's an A7 or an E minor, however you look at it.
Yeah, and you're
So I'm
playing it
taking
beautifully
that.
in tune. You know? Right. Yeah. Let's play a chorus or two of Mama Tried. And
Okay.
I love that intro.
4.
or the flat 2?
Nope, 4. Turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. 6. The record didn't have it, but the band did for 30 years, where they climbed up because of Eldon, because he was in the band in the 70s. So he added that, and that became a fixture that all the rest from him forward played that way in there. So when it got to the 5, normally it was but when he got in, it was yeah, 1, 2 minor, sharp, 3 minor, or 5 major 7, depending what you want to call it.
Wow, beautiful.
Major 7, not it's the same. If you played an A, then play an A minor shape, chromatic, back to the 1. So it's just a little bit, yeah, it's just enough of a twist that it catches your ear, and you go, I want to know that. It's so different, but it's such a small move, you know.
I never would have guessed that that's what was happening if you hadn't told me. Well, do me a favor, because one of the great things about your playing to me is that you play different every single time. There's no...
Well, I'm like a goose. It's a new day every day. I can't remember nothing.
So I'm gonna do the same thing and just play it again.
Okay.
And I love the intro because you're playing the intro so what it is. You're doing it. That is beautiful. Tell us a little bit more about maybe some of your influences that we might not know about. Some of you mentioned Tiny Moore. I mean, that's not a name that a lot of people name drop.
I couldn't play like him with a gun to my head. I mean,
well,
that's kind of playing that's unreal. But I listened to it, and I've stolen a few little tidbits here and there. But he was a jazz guy, but he happened to play a mandolin.
Yes.
And back in his day, I mean, he played a acoustic Gibson mandolin in the beginning and just strung it up with 4 strings, but he left the little E off and had a low C, so it sounded thicker and more guitar-like, where most mandolins have a high E, I guess it would be E, A, D, and then a G.
Yeah.
Like that. So he would have the A, he would go from an A to an E, A to a D to a G to a C. So his tuning, if you heard the open strings, you would hear.
Oh.
So he could play cool sounding things on 4 strings, but you know, it's tuned like a fiddle, but it's a 5th lower because it's a low C instead of a low G on a fiddle. Yeah. So he would play it that way, and of course it sounded, he had a Bigsby, made him a electric mandolin in the late 40s, and it was a 5-string that had, the 4 fiddle strings and a low C.
Yeah.
So he was unstoppable on that thing, and he would play all kinds of jazz stuff on that, And just like, I mean, maybe the jazz guys, it wasn't a big deal, but boy, in a Western swing band, when you hear. And then that kind of just swinging, crazy, smooth flowing stuff.
Yeah.
He would do that on an instrument that probably never had that before. And so it was like, holy cow, that's great stuff. So I listened to a lot of those things and try to learn some of them here and there, but the way that it's tuned and the way that you finger is a lot different than we would on the guitar.
Sure.
So it's a bit more limiting somewhat that way.
Well, who are some of the other people that were important to you in learning this?
Well, as a kid, my brother was a year older, so he had all kinds of good records and stuff, and we listened to everything. Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin were the big stuff of our day for rock bands, and I was a 10 years after fanatic. I wrote a little letter to England and joined the fan club for $5 and had a little card that said I was a Alvin Lee stalker, and I got a peace sign sticker to put on my guitar. So I listened to him, and I saw, the movie Woodstock when I was a kid. I was 14 or 15. Yeah. So I saw him doing I'm Going Home. I was like, holy cow. Playing that stuff was like, Jimmy Bryant, he's great, but this guy's doing it with distortion. It's better. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I listened to a lot of that stuff. I love Johnny Winter. I love Albert King. I love Shuggy Otis. Mike Bloomfield, all the kind of bluesy sort of guys, and the blues rock guys like Johnny Winters and Gary Moore when he was in Thin Lizzy. It was like, holy cow, crazy, impeccable playing. Listen, I didn't use much of it, but I learned a few licks here and there that I could pick up as a kid,
And your favorite jazz players were back then?
I listened to some. My dad had a Lenny Bro Live at Shelley's Manhole was a record, and I was like, I didn't ever get any of it, but I listened to it. It was like, oh yeah, he lived in Canada, Canadian. Oh, he's a kid. He grew up in Winnipeg. Right. Oh, cool. Well, so I'd listen to that, not get it, but so nothing soaked in, I'm sure. And I got to see him play live, and he was a super nice fella. I talked to him, and we had another couple people in common that I knew that he knew when he was a lot younger, and so we hit it off and talked a bit, and so he was cool. And but so I listened to him. But jazz guy wise, I never was a jazz guy because to me it was so outside and so non-melody and hard to mimic and play. And I guess being a dumb country guy, I just looked at it like, where can I use this information on my gig that I got this weekend?
Right.
And I went, let's see, we're playing on our bar band, and I'm, what am I going to play in there? I know I'd get fired if I tried one of those licks, because those guys, they don't like it.
But you didn't never wanted to moonlight just playing jazz standards just on your own? Or
no, I don't know any, and I mean, I wish I did do that, and because then I hear guys playing it, and I go, oh, now I know the chords, how they go. I don't know the melodies yet, but I'll learn them. I'll get to them.
I got you.
But I didn't do it as a kid, so I mean, I bought some records. I bought a Jim Hall record and a Barney Kessel record and
some Wes Montgomery,
Wes record, and Herb Ellis and all that, and Ted Green album, and I just went, what the fuck is that? When I got it, I just couldn't believe the stuff he was doing, and it was kind of like holy cow jazz stuff mixed in with a bunch of whale calls, know? It's like, what? But there again, I look at it at the time, I'd look, where am I going to use that if I was going to steal it?
But
move on.
It's an extremely useful, practical way of looking at things.
Or chicken shit because I didn't want to delve into
but you know what? I don't know if they always talk. I don't know if they're always talking about this in school. So this is good. Hey, back to Merle Haggard though. What's a day with Merle Haggard like when you're touring with him?
Yeah, we drove forever and set up and played, had supper, and played the gig, and got in the bus and drove all night to the next gig.
And would you say that this was like a lot of fun or hard work or
a dream for
come
me
true?
because I'm a Telecaster Gomer that copied and tried to steal everything I could off of Roy Nichols, and now I'm getting to play with the guy that really did it.
And I'm guessing, I don't know a lot about Merle. I read the autobiography and stuff. I'm guessing that this guy was a deep well of information on American music. Like he just knew way more than you could ever get out of
Than you'd imagine, even. Yeah. He listened to Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra. He had all the box sets on his bus, and that's what he listened to. That and Bob Wills and Lefty Frizzell and Jimmy Rogers, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, a lot of that kind, just all kinds of different stuff. And he loved big band things. He had lots of Duke Ellington on the bus, and listened to that stuff. And he loved jamming guitars, just sitting guitars on the couch and on the bus once we stopped somewhere. So we spent hundreds of hours, playing My Home in Indiana and those kind of tunes, and with the fiddle player and stuff, fiddle tunes, and jamming on stuff and old swing tunes and lots of Bob Wills. So it was a hoot.
When I saw him a couple times later in life, he was playing the heck out of the guitar.
Oh yeah. He loved guitar more than singing. He really did.
Wow.
He couldn't do anything about it. He said, man, if I could be in your shoes and have your job and you be the singer and I just go home at the end of the night, he said, I'd do that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? You sing like that? And he's like, yeah, that's what I do, but I'd rather be a guitar player. That's what I wanted to be, was a guitar player in a band. That's my goal.
Well, his problem
never
was
happened
that he was a genius songwriter.
That got in his way. Yeah, it got in his way of being a hot rod guitar player.
And I always thought that the way Merle Haggard could encapsulate the entire human experience in about 8 lines of music was astonishing.
Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. When you you're at this stage in your life where you now live in Galax, Virginia. You were in Austin for 20 years. You said you're down there. There's no telly players. You're just listening to bluegrass and such. Are you getting ready to make a new record? Are you what's the next couple of years look like for you?
Yeah, I've been to a studio and I put a bunch of drums and bass and rhythm guitar for a bunch of tunes. My goal is to make maybe 3 different albums. One be a country honky-tonk barroom kind of album, and then a western swing one, and then for the third one, if I get around to it, to be a more guitar geek, electric, screaming, weird, whatever I can come up with, wannabe Jeff Beck stuff or whatever, that kind of thing. Because I love that stuff too, and a lot of those kind of instrumentals.
I'd love to hear you play a Jeff Beck tune. That would be good. Let's try to make that happen this week. By the way, we're at the Full Moon Resort where we're about to do the Masters of the Telecaster Camp. I didn't mention that at the beginning.
That's right.
Where we're going to be surrounded by a bunch of
better players.
You described it in a post in a much more poetic way. Goober.
Bunch of guitar goobers. Telecaster goobers. They all play Telecasters. They all got a screw loose, but they're great.
A couple other quick things. One of the records that you did with Merle had a song on it that is just so beautiful. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. In fact, I wish I'd asked you to do it last night, If I Could Only Fly.
That was written by an Austin fellow named Blaze Foley.
Right.
And Merle just flipped out over that song when he heard it.
Because
I guess it reminded of something maybe he would have written.
Yeah.
And Blaze beat him to it. And we recorded that song probably 7 or 8 times, 7 or 8 different ways.
Really? How so?
So just different feels, different grooves.
Because it's a very gentle, slow.
So yeah, we did that.
Spare.
That was only If I Could Only Fly CD.
Yeah.
And so we recorded that version, and we got some mileage out of that. But he just loved the song so much, he wanted to try it several different ways to see how it laid out there.
No kidding.
Just as an experiment.
But the production on that is quite interesting. If I'm not mistaken, there's a harp on that.
Yeah.
So this was sort of a, let's try this, let's try that type of thing. So what if we put harp on it?
That was one of his harebrained ideas, yeah.
God, it worked.
Is there any harp players around here? Well, there's a little gal in San Francisco plays one. Call her up. She comes up, brings this big old rig with her, and sets it all up, and little stuff, and nails it first take. Of course, to her, she's probably, 2 chords, what,
Well, I don't know. I think she's thinking I'm with Merle Haggard, and I just read up on him, and he's
maybe so.
Probably the most famous guy I've ever been around.
For a harp person, maybe so.
But check this out. You're playing on that, and I wish I'd listened to it before we talked, but it's absolutely beautifully melodic. And, for all the stuff the fancy stuff we've been talking about, and I'm kind of a jazz guy, so I enjoy talking about this.
Sure.
But let's bring it back around to melody, and you play some of the most simple, sparse, but perfect stuff on that. Talk about that ability as a player, which has kept you working partly for all these years, and how you approach a delicate song like that. Take that song as an example. Was it just kind of obvious to you what it needed?
To me, it's like, it doesn't need a bunch of hot, fancy nothing in there. It's just, it's telling a different story than hey, I'm at the bar and I'm having a drink. We're going to get in my pickup truck and go home, baby. It's nothing to do with that, or anything like that, or high energy, any high anything. It's more of a laid back, wishing he could have what he was wishing for, and that kind of a song. So I just, and the tempo and the feel and the groove is like, I don't want to hear a whole bunch of, whatever, That doesn't fit that thing. It's not, to me, I don't hear that in there. If I heard a guy doing it, I'd probably say quit,
Right.
So think of that and think, well, what can I play that's, just sparse but nice, and just maybe. It's all it needs. It doesn't need it. He's selling a song. He's telling a great story, and with a beautiful voice and a nice floating basement rhythm section carrying the thing. So I think you guys shouldn't distract from that with what you're supposed to add to it. Okay, what are you supposed to add to it? Think about it.
Yeah.
Should it be busy? Should it have too many chords in it? Should it be super fast? Just on the tempo alone, no to those 3.
Yeah, so let's do...
So it's thinking ahead, a little bit of common sense, I think it is.
Let's close with you playing a ballad. How about we play Bartender Blues? By the way, did you play that with George Jones?
No.
Yeah, he wasn't doing that song then. When did you play with him?
Well, when I was with Merle, we did his TV show a couple of times. And then, actually before that, I filled in for his guitar player. His wife was having a baby, so he couldn't go on the road for a couple of weeks. So I filled in for that. But George Jones' gig wasn't much guitar playing, and it was mostly steel guitar on his ballads, and piano, a lot of piano and stuff. All the guitar was kind of,
Beautiful.
That kind of sound.
Do that again with your bridge pickup.
With that, but you see, like the race is on, and tuned down for that, The race is on, and it comes down back up. When they throw the inside, and I tear the whole back. Right up the pole. That's the hottest thing, at the time. Guitar-wise, so it wasn't like a guitar job. But
By the way,
George Jones.
Was Glenn Campbell important to you as a guitar player?
As a kid, when I watched the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, because him and Jerry Reed played together, I was just like, and then as a kid, I don't think I noticed him as much.
Yeah, it took me a while. I was a lot older than I realized.
A lot older than I saw him and Roy Clark together. Then I went back and saw him and Jerry Reed, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, this guy.
He's not just a pretty boy with a nice voice. That guy's a guitar player first.
Yeah.
Of course, later you dig back and all those, what was it, Wrecking Crew?
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that played on all the records.
Yeah.
He played guitar with the Champs on Tequila.
Yeah.
Beach Boys, he went on the road with them, playing with them. Oh, yeah. And he sang every part they could sing because he had perfect pitch, and just on and on and on. As time went on, I learned more and more and loved his singing more and more.
Yeah.
And then those songs that he recorded, try and follow the chords to those.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Wait, nothing country about that fellow.
Yeah.
And he's from Delight, Arkansas. You know? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What a life.
Redd Volkaert, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.